Unajua kuna ujinga ingine mimi sitaki kusikia. Sasa wewe nisikize. Okay? 1 million is too small for me.
Well, have you ever seen a multi-millionaire musician completely lose it on live television across all social media platforms?
This is bullshit.
And destroy an entire reputation in just under 5 minutes?
Yeah, hii ni expenditure 1 week. Hapo wewe nikupea kitu wewe?
Unakata na hasira.
Sasa kuna pesa wewe? Bwana.
Unakata na hasira.
Sitaki kusikia bwana.
Unakata pesa na hasira.
Kama hataki niambie Wakenya wengine wenye wako na shida tuwa support bwana. Usinikasirishe.
What?
What the fuck?
Well, that is exactly what happened yesterday when Bahati mtoto wa mama decided he had had enough of the rumors and allegations surrounding Kenya's national football team.
Jua, kuna mambo sikuwa nataka kuaddress kwa sababu it's not worth talking about, lakini kuna kitu nimenotice. Kuna watu wana sabotage hii process ya mimi kupea Harambee Stars hii 1 million. Ndio kuwe maneno mingi. Una understand? DK, hebu niletee hiyo mzigo. Lete hiyo mzigo. Unajua?
Lakini hii
nifungulie hii. Kila rua hii.
What started as whispered accusations behind closed doors just exploded into the most dramatic public confrontation the Kenyan entertainment industry has seen this year. I'm talking about serious money here. Folks, we are not discussing about pocket change, but we're talking about some pretty celebrity drama. This involves millions of shillings allegedly connected to the Harambee Stars funding, one of the Kenya's most respected former footballers getting absolutely demolished live on camera.
Unajua?
Tulia ba.
Hii ni 1 million. Hii ni 2 million.
Na hii
ni 3 million.
Wanafaa wapewe 3 ama 1.
Nilikuwa niwapee 1, lakini this is my weekly expenditure.
And a musician who just declared himself the wealthiest artist in the country while simultaneously ending someone's career. If you think you know what happened, trust me, you don't know half of what really happened.
Hii kwanza hii kupeana 1 million. Unatafuta kiki wewe.
Mimi natafuta kiki ya nini? Sijatoa wimbo 1 year.
Wacha kukasirika kwanza. Wacha kukasirika.
Sijatoa wimbo 1 year, but I'm still Kenya's most talked about entertainer and artist. I don't need to get kiki from our players. You understand? Hii ni kitu kidogo, unajua.
But before we dive into the absolute chaos, let me paint you the picture of how we even got here. Because the story has been building up for months and the explosion we witnessed yesterday was just the tip of the iceberg, there are layers to this drama that go deeper than anyone initially realized.
When avoid the people that think 1 million is too much money. That is a poverty mentality.
This is not a lot of money for you.
That is a poor person. Mimi natafuta kiki. Mimi ni mtu nimekalia dikiti ya rais. Mimi nilikalia diketi ya rais Uhuru Kenyatta bwana. Mimi nilitrend hadi BBC, CNN. Nakuja kutafuta kiki kuhusu players ya nini?
Tufanye aje vijana wapewe pesa yao.
Kwanza nisikize. Hiyo ni kitu very serious sana. Nataka kuambia watu.
And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why this single confrontation from Bahati might have just changed the entire landscape of the Kenyan entertainment and sports politics forever. Now, for those who might not be familiar with the key players in this unfolding drama, let me set the stage properly. Bahati, whose real name is Kevin Kioko, isn't just any ordinary musician. This guy has built an empire that spans music, television, politics, and business ventures that most people can't even begin to comprehend. We're talking about someone who went from humble beginnings to allegedly becoming the richest musician in Kenya, and yesterday he decided to prove it in the most spectacular way possible. On the other hand, Mariga, a name that should command respect in the Kenyan football circles. This is former Inter Milan player, someone who represented Kenya on the international stage, a guy who was supposed to be involved in processes that would benefit Kenyan football. But according to Bahati's explosive revelations, Mariga has been playing a completely different game behind the scenes, and it's not the kind of game that benefits anyone except himself. The allegations that Bahati addressed yesterday didn't just come out of nowhere. For weeks, there had been whispers in the Kenyan media and social media circles about irregularities in how funds meant for Harambee stars were being handled. People were asking questions about transparency, about who was making the decisions, and about why certain processes seemed to be getting sabotaged from within. These were not just random conspiracy theories floating around social media. These were serious concerns being raised by people who understand how sports administration and funding works in Kenya. But here's where it gets interesting. Instead of these allegations dying down or being handled through proper channels, they somehow got connected to Bahati. People started suggesting that his involvement in various ventures, including potential sports-related investments, was somehow getting problematic. They were implying that his success and wealth were connected to improper dealings, and that apparently where Bahati decided to draw the line. When Bahati finally responded yesterday to these allegations that he had not given out the promised 1 million Kenyan shillings to the Harambee Stars players, he didn't just defend himself. He went on what only could be described as a complete and a total offensive. This wasn't measured response or a carefully crafted public relations statement. This was a man who felt his reputation and integrity were being attacked, and he decided to respond with the full force of his influence and resources. The first thing Bahati did was systematically dismantle every single allegation that had been made against him. He didn't just say they were false. He provided specific details, mentioned names, showed screenshots, gave exact dates and timings, and even gave more information that only someone with serious insider knowledge would have access to. And we're talking about financial records, meeting details, and communications that most people will never be able to obtain or verify. This wasn't just someone desperately trying to cover up his wrongdoing, but this was someone who had been keeping receipts and was waiting for the right opportunity to bounce back and eventually address the rumor that has been going on with multiple people, multiple media houses, and a lot of questions coming in the air on the main reason as to why Bahati and Diana Marwa had not funded the team whatever they had promised. The real bombshell came when Bahati started talking about Mariga's role and in what he described as systematic sabotage of processes meant to benefit the Kenyan football team. According to Bahati, he says that he had been planning with Mariga on the best way possible that he could use to give out the funds to the team, but Mariga had been declining his calls and Mariga didn't want to talk to him severally. Of course, Bahati also claims that he was at his son's birthday for the whole week, and that is when everything started going out of control, because it was being said that Bahati alikuwa anapigiwa simu and he was not picking up, and he didn't want to be held responsible for not disbursing the funds that were meant for the Harambee Stars players. Now, I need to be careful here because these are serious allegations and you're dealing with reputations and potentially legal implications. But based on what Bahati presented yesterday, the picture he painted was of someone who was supposed to be helping the Kenyan football club, but was instead using his position and connection to serve his own interests, even if it meant damaging opportunities for the national team and other stakeholders. The specific details that Bahati provided were stunning. He talked about meetings where decisions were made that directly contradicted what was best for the Kenyan football team. He mentioned instances where the funding opportunities were deliberately misinterpreted or sabotaged. He described a pattern of behavior that, if true, will represent not just personal betrayal, but a betrayal of every Kenyan football fan who trusted that people in positions of influence were working for the good of the sport. What made Bahati's presentation even more powerful was the evidence he claimed to have had. This wasn't just his word against Mariga's word. He referenced to documents, communication, and witnesses that could apparently verify everything he was saying was true. He talked about having recorded a conversation, giving out screenshots and financial records, even claiming that his weekly expenditure is just of about 3 million Kenyan shillings and that 1 million Kenyan shilling will never be a problem to him. Quoting his own words, Bahati said this, "Najua spendi kuongea about my wealth, but mimi hukuwa nimejaa. I'm the only artist in Kenya who is still trending despite the fact that I've not been in the music industry for close to over a year. Mimi sihitaji mziki ndo ni trend. Nimejaa, mimi ni bosi. Kama ni pesa nayo niko nayo. 1 million is very cheap change. Hata hii pesa 3 million," referring to DK, the guy who was standing right beside him. "Ukitaka enda jisaidie nayo ama leta tukagawe wa Kenya ambao wako na shida," instead of people pointing out fingers towards me wakisema ati nimeshindwa kupeana 1 million. But perhaps the most shocking moment came when Bahati addressed the question of his own wealth and success. Instead of being defensive about the allegation that his money came from improper sources, he completely embraced the topic completely. He didn't just deny the allegations, he went further and declared himself the richest musician in Kenya, and then he proceeded to provide details that were meant to prove this claim. The numbers that Bahati mentioned were staggering. We are not talking about someone who just comfortable or well off. According to his own account sources, we are dealing with someone whose monthly income from various sources exceeds what most Kenyans entertainers make in their entire years. Bahati himself said, "Kwa nini mimi siimbi ama compete na wasanii? Ni juu ile pesa hao wasanii wanatafuta wakitoa ngoma, mimi tayari niko nayo. Mimi ni bosi bana." He even went on and talked about investments which could be probably from multiple countries, business ventures that generate a passive income, and financial strategies that demonstrate a level of business so sophisticated that goes far beyond what people typically expect from the musicians. But what made this revelation even more impactful was the timing and the very context. Here was someone responding to allegations about improper financial dealings by essentially opening his books and challenging anyone to find anything wrong with how he had built his wealth. It was a power move that demonstrated not just the confidence that Bahati has, but a level of financial security that allowed him to take risks that most people in his position would never consider. I mean, he's the CEO of Bahati Bet Company, one of the most influential and one of the most richest betting companies in Kenya. The details were so devastating that Bahati described instances where Mariga had allegedly made promises to various stakeholders that he had no intention of keeping. He talked about how they had even planned about meeting, but then Mariga absconded all his calls. What was undeniable was the impact that this had on both men's reputations. Bahati emerged from this confrontation looking like someone who had been wrongly accused and had successfully defended himself while exposing the wrongdoings by others. His declaration of being the richest musician in Kenya, combined with the evidence he represented about his legitimate business success, positioned him as not just a wealthy someone whose success was based on hard work and smart decisions rather than any improper dealings. Mariga, on the other hand, has faced a completely different outcome. The allegations against him were very serious, and enough of that, they couldn't just be ignored or dismissed. The level of detail that Bahati had given out to the public, nature of the accusation meant that his reputation in the Kenyan football circles was now under serious scrutiny. People who had previously respected his contribution to the Kenyan football team are now questioning a lot of things on whether they had the full picture of his activities and motivations. The broader implications of these confrontations from Kevin Bahati extend far beyond just these two individuals. This situation has raised serious questions about transparency and accountability in how sports fundings and administrations work in Kenya. It highlighted the importance of having proper oversight and verification systems in place to ensure that people in positions of trust are actually serving the interests that they are supposed to serve. For the Kenyan entertainment industry, Bahati bold declarations about his wealth and business success have set a new standard for how Kenyan artists talk about their financial achievements. But kama Baha anaongea hivi kwa nyumba yake hapo Kamakis, what would Calligraph John say? By being so open about his success and the sources of his income, he has challenged other entertainers to be more transparent about their own businesses, activities, and financial strategies, but also implying that inafaa wa pull up their socks because he is out of their reach when it comes to money. Mimi ukuanga nimejaa, mimi ni bosi. That was Bahati talking boastfully about his unending wealth. The timing of this confrontation also raises interesting questions about why these issues came to head just now. Some observers have suggested that there might be a larger political or business factors at play here. It made it necessary for these allegations to be addressed publicly rather than through private channels. Others have pointed it out that Bahati's growing scrutiny of sports administration in Kenya is as a factor that made it impossible for these issues to remain hidden. Of course, Bahati also responded to the allegations that he was just chasing clout with the Kenya's national team, and Bahati confirms, mimi sihitaji clout, mimi ni mtu nimekalia kiti mpaka ya president, nilitrend from BBC to CNN, not just in Kenya. Kwa nini nitafute clout sahi? I already have clout living within me. What's clear is that the confrontation has permanently changed the dynamics between various stakeholders in the Kenyan entertainment and the sports. Looking at whatever Bahati argued yesterday, it presented both sides. It's difficult to ignore the thoroughness and confidence of Bahati's response to the allegations against him. Someone who was actually guilty of these kinds of improper dealings he was accused of would be unlikely to respond with such specific counter allegations and such detailed information about their own financial affairs. The level of transparency he demonstrated suggested that someone who genuinely believes they had nothing to hide. Of course, judging from the video which had also emerged a day earlier when Diana Bahati, Kevin Bahati's wife, was disbursing some money to their son Morgan for shopping, which also altered a big conversation on the internet, only confirms and clarifies that Bahati kweli akisema amejaa, clearly amejaa. As this story continues to develop, the focus will likely shift to whether the various claims and allegations made during this confrontation can be independently verified. The specific nature of the many accusations means that there should be a documentary evidence, witness testimony, and other forms of proof that can either support Bahati's claim or refute the claims made by both parties. For now, what we have witnessed is one of the most dramatic and one of the most comprehensive public confrontations in recent Kenyan entertainment history. Bahati's decision to address this allegation head-on while simultaneously declaring his status as the country's wealthiest musician has created a moment that will likely be remembered and referenced for years to come. Whether this represents the end of this particular controversy or just the beginning of a larger investigation into the sports administration and the entertainment industry practices remain to be seen. But this leaves us with one question. If Bahati is the richest musician in Kenya right now, where does that leave the likes of Akina Kote, who have always run or who have always ruled with that same crown for very many years? Let's catch up on my next video as we get to know whatever is happening in the celebrity world.